Okay, you have your NFL draft rank. You have A, B, C, D, and F. And honestly, every at this point in time, every single draft pick is overvalued, so it's probably all inflated. First, you got the Arizona Cardinals. They did not have the first round pick because they traded it to Marquise or Hollywood Brown. And I don't think that was a very good trade. I think they gave up too much. The rest of the draft was pretty good. They got a tight end. I don't think they really needed one, but dual tight ends are always fun to use. They got a couple of edges, a cornerback. I think they addressed their needs for the most part, but I did not like the trade for Hollywood, so I'll put them in C. Then you have the Atlanta Falcons. They went with London with their number 8 overall pick, and they got Desmond Ridder in the third round, so they got their quarterback of the future. They got some other edges and linebackers, and this was a solid overall draft. They got their quarterback in the future in the third round. Many people had Ridder going in the second. And London, he's a great receiver. I don't think they need a receiver. They need a receiver, but I don't think they need it at A, especially if they're rebuilding this year. But still, I think it's a pretty good draft. Put them at B. Then you got the Ravens. I actually really like their draft. Starting off with the trades, Hollywood Brown, they got a first round out of him, the 23rd round pick. I think that was great value. I think Hollywood before was only worth like a second or third, and they got first out of him, so that was great. They also got Hamilton had 14. I think he was the best safety. I thought he was going to go in the top 10. They got Linderbaum, good center. Nothing wrong with that pick at 25. Ajobo, he was a great pick at the second round. And of course, they got Falale, the offensive tackle. I think getting him in the fourth round was such a steal, especially with the Ravens' heavy running skills. So with the trades and the great draft picks, I'm going to put them in A. Then you have the Buffalo Bills. They went with their cornerback. They got a running back, linebacker. They got their punter. They got their punt god. And it was just a very solid draft by a team that's ready to Super Bowl content, plugging in holes. Good players, nothing wrong with the draft. I put them at B. Then you got the Carolina Panthers. Nothing wrong with the draft. Similar. You got Ignua at offensive tackle at 6. He's definitely one of the top tackles. Corral at third round. I think he's coming off an injury, but he is a pretty NFL ready quarterback for the future. Other than that, wasn't much. It was a good solid draft. Put them at B. Nothing wrong with it. Then you got the Bears. Interesting. They went with the defensive backfield in the second round. They got a wide receiver, got a tackle, and that was pretty much it. They had a lot of draft pick in the day 3 round. Similar to the rest of the teams, they traded away their first rounder to get Justin Fields, something that's not looking great right now. They did get cornerback, one of their weaknesses, and they strengthened the defensive backfield. They got a wide receiver for Justin Fields. I kind of wish they did more on the offensive line and get more help for Justin Fields. Could have added some more weapons. Could have helped the offensive line. For that, I'm gonna put them in C. Then you got the Cincinnati Bengals, also one with the defensive back. The first 2 picks, Baskin Hill in the first round. And yeah, they didn't defensive back. I don't think it was a major weakness, but you can always strengthen your defensive back, especially in a pass-heavy league. And with the free agent signing, their offense didn't have a lot of holes, so they didn't really go with any offensive players. I'm fine with that, and I'm put them at B. Then you got the Cleveland Browns. They did not pick until the third round when they selected a cornerback. They got an edge. They got David Bell, wide receiver, in the third round, which I think that's great value. I like him as a wide receiver. They got a kicker in the fourth, but I don't think it's a great value. They didn't pick until the third round, so these aren't on fire starters right now. But still, I think they got David Bell. That's a huge steal. They got an edge, corner, got a running back, which you didn't really need. Nothing wrong with this draft. Put them in B as well. Then you got the Dallas Cowboys. They went with the tackle. They got an edge, wide receiver, tight end. So they did. I don't know. The draft was just an okay draft. Nothing. They didn't reach for any. They didn't really steal any. It was a decent draft. Put them in B. You got the Denver Broncos. They went with Bonita at edge, and they got a tight end, which I think they really needed, and cornerback. This draft, edge, I think they addressed more of their weaknesses on defense, like the edge and cornerback. And on their one weakness on offense that I could see was their tight end, and they addressed that. I like the draft. They addressed their weaknesses, but not much in the trenches. The offensive line, I think, needs some work, and I wish they kind of worked on it a little bit more. But still, a solid draft. Give them a B as well. They got the Detroit Lions. They got on pick number 2, they got Hutchinson, I think the best pass rusher in the draft. At 12, they got Jameson Williams, and they trade up 32 to 12. I think they gave up like 1 second-round pick, which I think is tremendous value. And outside that, they got an edge, Pascal, and a safety, so strengthening the defense. And the draft, I'm not sure how it affects them rebuilding. I think it's a solid draft for rebuilding. You get an edge, cornerstone edge, and a great wide receivers. I will not put this in A since they had a lot of early draft picks. Put them in B for now. Then you got the Green Bay Packers. They went with a bunch of wide receivers, didn't pick until the second round though. They got Quay Walker and Devontae Watt, defensive linebacker and defensive tackle. And I think their defense is going to be top 5 this year. Last year they were top 10. This year with Quay Walker and Watt, I think they're going to be top 10. And what I liked about the draft is they didn't they did have some holes and along the wide receiver, which did fill, but they also strengthened a strong position in their defense. So I think that's something a championship team does. And offensive line, I also like the drafted Zach Tom. I was in the 4th round. I was pretty high on him, and I think I like the draft. I put him in B as well. They got the Houston Texans. They first got Stingley in the 3rd. I wouldn't say that's the greatest pick in the world. They got Kenyon Green. Got it. I like the pick. And in the 2nd round, they got the safety, and then they got John Mechie, this wide receiver. I think he's the one coming off an injury, and I don't think they need wide receiver help right now. And then they got a linebacker, and just, I don't know. I'm not sure this draft is for rebuilding since Stingley, I believe he's coming off an injury, and Kenyon Green, he's a good guard. But I don't know. I don't know. For now, I still put them on B, but I'm just not as confident on their draft. They got the Colts, they got Alex Pierce, the 2nd round, and they got tight end, and they got 3rd round, they got offensive tackle, the Ramen. I think that's tremendous value. And then outside of that, not much else. I like they address their weaknesses, their wide receiver, tight end, they got tackle, and solid draft for them as well. Then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trayvon Walker is such a risk of a pick. He has tremendous potential, but he is also very raw. He really did not produce. I think he only had 6.5 sacks in college in his final year, and he really didn't produce. Devin Lloyd at 27, I love the pick. Great linebacker, and they got a center in the 3rd round, and then they got Muma in the 3rd round, which I think is also a good pick. And overall, I'm just not confident in the number 1 pick, so I'm gonna put them in C. Then you got Kansas City. They got cornerback and McDuffie. I still think the cornerback room needs work. They got Karlaftis, edge, also in the 1st round. They also need edges. Sky Moore, I like the pick, 54. Sky Moore, he's a good receiver. And then they strengthen up their backfield with Cook. And then Chanel in the 3rd round, I really like the pick. Though I don't think they really need it. I really like the picks for them. It was a really solid draft, strengthening their weaknesses and strengthening their weaknesses. I wouldn't say this is an A plus draft since they didn't get really as many steals. I will put them as another solid draft. Then you got the Chargers. Zion Johnson, I feel like they could have gotten him a little later. And they got Isaiah Spiller in the 4th round. I think that's great value for him. They got a safety from Baylor in the 3rd round. Haven't heard much from him. And I feel like they should have worked more a bit on the linebackers. That's my only criticism. They didn't really get a linebacker. And I don't think they really needed Spiller. And I feel like Zion Johnson was kind of early. I think they could have traded back and still got him. But overall, I put them in C. I'm not a huge fan of the draft, but it's a good draft. Then you got the Rams. They went with the offensive line brush and then a quarterback, and they just didn't have many early picks. You can't really expect these late draft picks, day 3, day 4, day 2, day 3 draft picks to make a huge impact, so I'm going to put them in C. Oops. Raiders, similar to the Rams, didn't have a ton of draft picks. They did go with the guard in round 3 and Zamir White in round 4, a decent running back, good for rotation, but similar to the Rams, without those round 1, round 2, I'm not sure how much of these will make an impact, so I'm going to put them in C. And then similar to the other 2 teams, Miami only had 4 draft picks. They went with Tyndall. I like the pick. The Zuma, the wide receiver, I don't think they need a receiver, but he's a Devo type receiver I think Mike McDaniel will love. But there just isn't enough to justify this putting it any higher than C. So then you got the Minnesota Vikings. Because of the trade, they definitely dropped their grade. I feel they could have gone so much more for dropping 20 spots in the 1st round. They still got signed safety in the 2nd round. They got Booth, and I think that's great value. Booth, I think he could have won in the 1st round. Ingram for offensive line, and then Samo and the linebacker, great value there as well. And because of the trade down, I didn't really like it that much. But the players, especially Booth and the linebacker in the 3rd round, I really like the pick. I'll put them at C. They got the New England Patriots. Really didn't like this draft. In the 1st round, they went with Cole Strong, a guard that was projected in the 2nd and 3rd round. In the 2nd round, they went with Thornton. Did not like the pick. He was super fast for combine 40, but to me, I feel like he needs way more. Thornton is very raw. He's just speed. He needs to work on his route running, catching, so much other stuff. And in the 4th round, was it 4th? Yeah, 4th round, they went with Zappy. I do not think they needed him. I don't think they needed to draft a 4th rounder to be a backup. And they drafted a pair of running backs. I do not think they need it. They do a running back rotation. They already have like 2 running backs, James White and Damian Harris and one other person, Stevenson. I don't think they need 2 running backs. And the only thing I like are the corners I picked. I think corners are a huge, massive need, and they just did not draft any linebackers. I think they really needed linebackers, and they reached on many picks. I'm gonna put them in F. So that could be all wrong. They got the New Orleans Saints. They got Olave. I don't think they should have traded up for a receiver. I just don't think they needed Olave. Penning, I like the pick. And Taylor, a cornerback 2nd round, kind of a reach-ish. Not a huge fan of that. I just don't like the Olave pick at 11 and trading up for them, so I'm gonna put that D. Then you got the Giants. I really like them. At number 5, they got Thibodeau. At one point, he was projected to be number 1, but then after not a great college season and some speculation about his interest. He dropped to 5, but I still think that's a tremendous value. And at number 7, they got Evan Nealon. I think he was the best tackle. And people have him going first, and they got him at 7th. Then they got a wide receiver, and so on. But their first 2 picks, I didn't propel this to be an A draft. Then you got Jets. To me, compared to the rest, I think the Jets were overhyped. They got Gardner good, but at pick number 4, I expect a good pick, and Gardner is good, so nothing special with that. Garrett Wilson at 10. I don't think they need a receiver, especially not at 10. They already have Mims. I keep on forgetting their other second-year receiver. They have Corey Davis. I just don't think they need a wide receiver at 10. I would have taken a wide receiver in the second round, like Pierce. Brees Hall, good running back. Nothing wrong with that pick, though they already have Michael Carter, but nothing about pairing it with Brees Hall. I like the pick of Rucker at 3rd round. I wish they kind of went with defense more, honestly. I kind of wish they went for a defensive draft more so. Like maybe dress their linebackers, maybe get a pass rusher instead of being in the 4th round. So not the biggest fan of the draft, but I give them a B. Then you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Really, you got to factor in the A.J. Brown trade. A.J. Brown trade was great. They did have to give him a huge contract, but all they gave up was a first rounder for him. And they also got Jordan Davis, a great defensive tackle. And my biggest steal has to be the round 3 Dean being a linebacker. Great pick, especially many people have him going in the first round. I give them an A. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got their quarterback of the future and Kenny Pickett. And they got a wide receiver in the 2nd round, they did pick 2 wide receiver, Austin in the 4th round. I think that's a great pick, and Pickens, good pick, nothing wrong with that. The only questions I have with this draft is you didn't go with any offensive line, no offensive line. I wish they addressed the trenches more, and I wish they got an offensive lineman and a cornerback. They did, and I feel like they went so much more for skill positions, which I don't think they need right now. So for that, I'm gonna put them in C. You got the Seattle Seahawks. Not the worst draft. They got Cross, offensive tackle. They got Mafe in the 2nd round, defensive lineman. And they got Kenneth Walker. The only one pick I disagree with. I don't think they need a running back as of right now. They do have Penny and Chris Carson, both on 1-year contracts, but you're rebuilding right now. You still have Drew Lock. You didn't pick a franchise quarterback. I'm fine with that. But I feel like you're shorting one of his running NFL years by picking a running back when he's just starting to rebuild. Other than that, Lucas, not a huge fan of him, but nothing wrong. And they got Kobe Bryant with 4th, and cornerbacks. I like they're building through the trenches, going offensive tackle a couple of times. Got Mafe, 2nd round defensive lineman. I'm fine with them not taking a QB because their team just isn't ready for one, and addressing the backfield a little bit. They're building the team before they get the quarterback. Like I said, the only pick I didn't really like is the Kenneth Walker, even though he's a tremendous running back. Still, I give them a B. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers. Not sure about their first 2 picks. Edge, Jackson wasn't their biggest need. They have Nick Bosa and some other person in the defensive line I forgot about. And in the 3rd round, they went with Price. I do not agree with that. I don't think they need a running back like at all. Gary Gray, round 3 wide receiver, not the worst pick, but I don't know about that pick. And they didn't go with quarterback, which I think was their biggest weakness, even with Travarius Ward into the 5th round. And I don't know. I just didn't really agree with their first 2 picks. I'll put them at D. Then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went with Logan Hall, defensive tackle, and then offensive lineman, and they went with running back in the 3rd round, tight end. It looks like a championship team drafting for filling in holes, trading back, getting the best player available, not getting the best player available, the best player for them. So I'm gonna put them at B. Then you got the Titans. Traded a 1st round pick, traded AJ Brown for a 1st round pick. I did not like that trade. They did trade Traylon Burks with the pick, but you're kind of just weakening the receiving core with trading AJ Brown for Burks, and their wide receiving core they did not go with any other wide receiver except Kyle Phillips in the 5th round. They did draft the cornerback, offensive lineman, and they drafted Malik Williams in the 3rd round. So they got the cornerback of the future. So even though trading away, the only problem I don't like is they're drafting for the future with Malik Willis and their wide receiver. These are all like picks that will like help them in like 2 or 3 years once they get used to the NFL. But for me, their best chances of winning a Super Bowl is right now. I kind of wish they did something where they plug in all their holes, drafting maybe one more wide receiver, and their way, because I think their best chance for them to win a Super Bowl is right now before Derrick Henry starts declining. So for them, I'll put them in D. You got the Commanders. They went with Dotson at B. I don't think they need a wide receiver at 16 though. And they went with Mathis, defensive tackle, not a worst pick. Robinson, running back in the 3rd round from Alabama. I kind of like the pick, but yeah. And they got Sam Howell, QB in the 5th round. Sam Howell, I really like the value of the 5th round. They got the quarterback of the future. I don't really like Dotson that much, especially at 16. I just don't really like him as a wide receiver being drafted that early. They did get their quarterback of the future, but still, I'm putting him at C.